Let's talk about bump fire. What exactly is it? Where does it come from? How is your firearm being changed? But before we talk about this, I need to address the anti-gun people that are going to watch this video and think they can make some sort of hate video and close Pandora's box. First off, this has been around like long before my dad was a kid. Like, this was a technique passed down over year after year after year. I'm assuming at some point someone had like an M1 Garand and a Pabst Blue Ribbon, and they're like, hey dude, check this out. And brrr, shot their M1 Garand fast. I can't track down to exactly where bump fire came from, but it's been around for a long time. And you're not modifying your firearm in any way, shape, or form. It's a technique of how you shoot your firearm. That's what's being different. It's still just your normal semi-auto, and you're firing it this way. Also understand there's no such thing as full semi-auto. When they refer to full, it's usually followed by automatic, which means you depress the trigger and the gun will continue to fire until the magazine empties, or then they have various versions of it like 3 and 5 round bursts, which is where you depress the trigger and it'll fire 3 times or 5 times, then stop. You have to release the trigger and press it again. With a semi-auto, you get one fire. The firearm fires once, you let go of the trigger, it resets, you pull the trigger, it fires again. Bump firing is something you do with a semi-auto. The gun's not changed at all, it's still the same gun, you're just firing it differently. So what you're going to be doing is utilizing the recoil of the firearm to reset the trigger. So basically, you're going to take your dominant hand and you're going to lock it still. A lot of people will bump fire from their side because they'll take their dominant hand, they'll put their finger on the side of their body, belt loop or something like that, and pull back. This way there's constant pressure pulling back on their finger, and then their hand is locked still. But if you practice bump fire, you can actually do it from the shoulder and everything. Now what the secret is to not grip the pistol grip. You don't grip that at all, because you want your hand to be independent from the firearm. You take your trigger finger, usually people will do something like this, and you put it on there, and you're not going to pull the trigger. All you're going to do is concentrate on not moving your arm. And instead of pulling the trigger, you're going to apply pressure to the firearm and bring it forward. The firearm will fire, it will recoil, it will come to the rear, but because you're pushing forward with this hand right here, after it recoils, it'll go back forward. And so the firearm will rock on your body. Here, we're going to do it opposite hand. So you'll have your finger locked, you'll push forward with the firearm, it'll set off the firearm, the recoil will come back, it will reset the trigger, but you're pushing forward with this hand, and it'll fire again. So you're always pushing forward, and you find the sweet spot right in between pushing forward and having your arm locked, and you can simulate automatic fire. That's all it is. It's ridiculously inaccurate because you're not pulling the trigger, you're moving the firearm. So the whole time your sights are jumping around, you can't hit anything. That's why most people don't even screw around with shoulder bump firing. They just go off their body, plus it's a whole lot easier because they don't have the stock pushing on their shoulder. And just do it this way. But again, you can do it off your shoulder. You just gotta lock your hand, make sure when you push forward, a gap appears right here in between the stock and your shoulder. It'll fire, and just start going to town. Now there are attachments you can do that will help you learn how to bump fire easier. One of the big ones were bump stocks. What it basically was a stock that can move freely. This way you can push it up against your shoulder, and it had a bar that came up here that you would rest your finger on. So you push forward with the firearm, and it would bump fire. The ATF, in all their wisdom, decided even though the firearm hasn't changed in any mechanical sense whatsoever, you've just replaced the stock with something that doesn't lock into place, that part in itself is a machine gun. I can't explain that to you, why that happens, or how they came to this conclusion, but they did, so that's something to be aware of. Otherwise, a lot of people, they will also take their trigger guard. Let me grab a pen real quick. They pull their trigger guard down like so, and they'll put a couple of rubber bands around the trigger. So when they push the trigger, the rubber bands are pushing forward, then the recoil fires, and even against your shoulder, it still resets it, and you can simulate full auto and get a feel for what full automatic feels like. Another part you can buy that'll help you simulate it if you would like is like this firearm has a binary trigger. Notice it's got 3 positions: auto, semi, safe. All a binary trigger does is it still only fires once when you pull the trigger, but it also fires when you release the trigger. So if you get good, you can walk the trigger and simulate full auto. Other than that, again, I mean, this technique's been around long before we were ever, you know, a little tadpole. You get the idea. Since like the M1 Grand days, that's the first time I heard of anybody doing it, was firing M1 Grands. Or you can call it Garand, or whatever the hell, however you like to pronounce it. It's existed long before us, and it will exist long after us. Even if you make some sort of anti-gun video saying you're trying to save the world by taking away some hillbilly's fun. But anyway, to the people not making anti-gun videos, go out there and have fun. That's your assignment. Remember, this arm and this trigger finger needs to stay locked in a position. You will not pull the trigger. You're going to push the firearm forward, and the force of pushing the firearm forward will set it off. The recoil will reset the trigger, but because you're pushing forward, it'll go forward again, and you will simulate full auto fire. That is your assignment. I want you to go out there and try it, and see if you can do it. It's a pretty easy technique to do. Remember, the really easiest way to do it is put your finger on your body, or hook your belt loop with your finger, and then just fire it that way. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like to help support the channel, got my Patreon right there. I also have affiliate links in the description down below. Just by clicking on those links, even if you don't buy what that particular link is for, just clicking on that and doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway, I had a little kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.